And you hear a lot of couples where, the busy schedules of life, everything gets in between them. So they stop dating each other. They stop trying to learn new things. They kind of get in the same old mold. And so if you're not intentional about discovering, that person you married for us on June 2001 is different than the person today, August of 2023. So I could be still, because I haven't been intentional about learning new things, still be relating to her in that same June of 2001 spouse that I married.
Welcome to the Father on Purpose podcast, featuring author and ministry leader Kent Evans and business executive and military veteran Lawson Brown. This is a show for you, Dad. You want to be a godly and intentional father. Unfortunately, you've turned to these two knuckleheads for help. Let us know how that works out for you. Before we begin, remember this: you are not a father on accident. So go be a father on purpose. Please welcome your hosts, Kent and Lawson.
Knowing what our marriages are for as dads and as husbands can help us squeeze all the good out of the good days, but also endure and work through the bad days. And we're blessed to be joined today by an author, speaker, and I'm going to say he's a marriage expert, even though he might push back on that because nobody has it all figured out, obviously. But our guest today is author and speaker and leader, Jackie Bledsoe. And I'm super pumped to have Jackie with us today. We met for the first time about a month ago, and I've watched him for years and been paying attention to his ministry and his work. And Jackie, you've done great work and served lots of people over the last decade or so. I'm super grateful for you taking some time to join us on the show today. Welcome.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's good to meet you, Jackie.
And Lawson, would you have passed the test, Lawson, if I said, hey, man, what's your marriage for anyway? What's your really cool answer that's way better than mine?
That's way less selfish than your answer?
For example.
My immediate thought was my kids.
Yeah.
But I'm
2
curious.
daughters.
I'm interested. You've got me hanging on my seat here because obviously Jackie is the guy with the answers.
He has at least some, if not all, of the answers. Jackie, if we started there, I know that's a kind of a big place to start, but before we go there, just tell us a little bit about you, your life situation, your wife, your kids. Get us oriented to who is Jackie Bledsoe.
Yes. So Jackie Bledsoe is the husband of Stefana Bledsoe. And we have 3 kiddos. We have a young adult who just recently graduated college. It's our daughter, JC. And we've got 2 boys, Jackson and Joshua, both teenagers, 17 and 13. So we are at a different season in life. Stefana and I have been serving couples accidentally throughout the course of our marriage, and then now intentionally. We didn't know what we were doing at first, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, okay, well, we have a little bit of influence and we can help some people based on what God's done in our marriage and what we've learned through the process. So that's a little bit about who we are and who Jackie is.
Oh, that's great. And how long have you and Stefana been married?
We have, here's how I answer that question. So we've been married since June of 2001. And I was advised by one of our pastors to not do math in public. And so we always refer back to the date. So you can never go wrong. I'll never forget June of 2001, but I might not add it up right.
Yeah, you might get that's pretty good advice. What happened, Jackie? Like where in your marriage, where in your, just the flow of your lives did you guys say, you know what, you called it by accident, which I know you don't mean like it's by accident, but like you went from being on accident to being on purpose. And we resonate with that because this is father on purpose. You're not a dad by accident. What happened to enlighten you guys, I guess, to say, yeah, let's do. Kent had a similar experience. Like he left and, went into doing something, ministry for full time. How did that happen with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, really, when we first young in marriage, it was very, very rough. We came into marriage not knowing I say we were still kids. We were young. We didn't know what we were doing. Not only that, we were doing things prior to marriage that didn't set us up for a long lasting marriage. One of those things, we came into marriage and our daughter, who is 23 years old now, we're only been, if you did the math, we haven't yet reached 23 years in marriage. So she was 10 months old when we were born. So here we are what I say, two young kids coming together with a newborn baby,
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to be adults. The term now is adulting. Try to figure out how to raise a child when we felt like we were still not there yet, and then also try to figure out how to be married, how to share your life with somebody
Right.
else. So
Mm.
it was very challenging for the first few years. Fortunately, we came into contact with some other couples, some pastors at our church who kind of took us under our wing and mentored us and coached us and guided us and taught us things about marriage that we didn't know. And
Mm.
at that point, it changed the trajectory of our marriage. Fast forward several years later is when we started to realize, okay, it's not just about us. It's bigger
Mm.
than just us.
Did you guys seek out those mentors proactively, or did they kind of, grab you guys in the hallway one day?
Yeah, not necessarily those particular mentors proactively, but we were proactively trying to grow, and proactively trying to grow in our faith is one of the biggest things. So one of the mentors, who became like family to us, literally. We were, we didn't have we weren't married. We were in our church's new members class. So I don't know, this is the way it worked with our church. You
Yeah.
join the church, you walk down and you say, okay, I want to join the church. And you have 13 weeks of new members classes. 13
Oh, that's
weeks.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
That's a long
time. So, but we were, very new baby girl, and we weren't married. So we'd be in the back of the church, babies in our faith, babies, trying to raise a baby. And so we were kind of sitting in the back, hiding out. And the teacher of this class, this new members class, called us out, and he said, "Hey, you guys back there, it's like, how long have you guys been married?" And so here we are, unmarried, sitting
Ooh.
in church, baby right here. Baby was with the JC was with us
Right.
everywhere we went. And so Stefana kind of stuck back and was like, looked at me like, you got us into this. You're going to answer that question. That was the look on her face. So I
That's
said,
when
well,
Jackie just goes, well, when you say married,
Right,
what do you mean like married? Do you mean married?
Right. So I said, we're not married. Fast forward after the class, he said he knew that. He just wanted to, that's his personality. He kind of called us out. He introduced us to his
What?
nephew. We became really good friends. That couple, along with, then after that class, we signed up for another class. We were just hungry to learn and grow. In the next class that we signed up, I joke and say we got our premarital counseling about our first anniversary,
Right.
which makes no sense to get pre-marriage counseling after marriage. But
That's
that class,
fantastic.
we start connected with that couple who now kind of took us under our wing. So not necessarily them, but they saw something in us, and we definitely saw something in them that we wanted to model. And so that's kind of how it started. And throughout the course of our marriage, mentors have continually poured into us.
Wow. And so as you have done that, I love the topic of mentoring. I don't want to get off on a whole side trail, but I have always kind of thought about it as either the mentor can reach in and grab the mentee and say, hey, you look like you need some help, or which usually a little more fruitful, I find, is when the mentee reaches up and says, hey man, you look like you got your act together. Would you coach me a little bit? Yeah. Have you continued to do that throughout the last couple of decades with other mentors as you've either moved or switched churches or, whatever? How's that working in your life these days?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. We're not here today as a married couple without the mentors that have poured into us. And just like that couple, they were all organic. I don't know if there was maybe a couple were official, like, hey, will you help us in this area? But most of them were just relationships that we had, like that one through the class at church. We started to, connect with them. They actually, the wife of the pastor, she was running the daycare. So we sent our daughter to her daycare. And so we just got in doing life with them and fellowshipping with them. And when we had challenges, they were there for us. They counseled us, they coached us. And then, each season of marriage, there was a couple that was pouring into us. So it hasn't been that couple every year of our marriage. Yeah. God has just placed us in the situations, and we were open and willing to receive whatever counselor was. And sometimes it was tough. Sometimes the husbands would call me out and be very direct with me. And I had to be humble enough to receive that and not push back or say, we're not doing this anymore. We're not connecting anymore. And so that has been very, very helpful. And mentoring is a big aspect of our marriage because of that. Even to this day, we're 22, hopefully I'm doing the math right, 22 years of marriage. And we still have couples that we consider mentors that we can go with challenges, with successes, just to listen, or situations that we like their advice on. So it's life to your marriage.
And you're sort of, as a couple now, public, putting positioned as a mentor publicly,
Yeah.
way prior to the decision that you guys made to go and do this and kind of devote yourselves in that capacity. Did you have a normal, regular, 9 to 5 kind of job, or did you know early on that you were going to get into ministry full time?
Yeah, didn't know at all. But I now know that I am a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I'm always starting something and always creating something and always doing something that doesn't necessarily fit the traditional. And so, I've been the one that has worked a job until I got tired of that job. It's like, okay, we need to build this. Then did both of them together, all of that. But like with the marriage ministry itself, we didn't know it, but we were getting prepared for this through some work that we were doing with same church where we met that first couple. In that class, we connected with some other couples that were around our age in marriage and, same demographics. And our church didn't do it, but we formed our own organic, what you would call a small group. And so we did life with those couples for several years. And we'd meet once a month, like officially, and we'd hung out all the time. But whoever hosted that month would have to do some sort of study and create some sort of marriage enrichment to share with and teach to the other couples. So we started doing that, not knowing it was really marriage ministry, just knowing like we need help. We all liked each other and we all had the same heart in trying to grow together as a couple in a way that pleased God. And so we continue to do that over time. And then, in the process of that was not business at all.
What you're saying is so counter to what a lot of the dads we've run into the last 10 years at Manhood Journey have expressed in one specific way. And I don't want to cut you off, but I want to ask a question as you're talking. And it is a lot. You seem to be the freak who builds community and who leans in to people around you, where many men I bump into seem to say things like, I don't have any friends. I sat across the table last week at an event with a guy who had walked through a divorce. And one of his central comments about having walked through this divorce was he said, I had no friends by my side as I walked through it. Now, I'm a bit of a, critical or judgmental kind of guy some days. It's one of my weaknesses, I'll admit. But most guys who hit age 40 or 50 and have no friends, it's not always because there were none to be had. I mean, I just got to be honest. It's usually because those guys pushed those friends away or kept them at arm's length or didn't invest in friends and relationships around them. But you seem like almost the opposite. You do a job. You seem to be very intentional about building relationships around you that would strengthen you, your marriage, you as a man. Why do you think that is? How did you get that way? And why are more men not like that? Hey, Chris, today in the church, we seem to have this crisis of manhood where we're still wrestling with what's a man? What is he at all? What's he to do? How's he to behave? And so in that light, we're struggling, I think, in the church with discipling men. Why are we struggling with that? And what can we do about it?
Yeah, that's such a good question. We're struggling with discipling men largely because men think church is boring. They come to church and it's very feminized, right? From the colors to singing about drowning in an ocean of God's love. Like they're just not interested in that. But that's just the way it is because that's the base of the church today, and a lot of churches cater to their base. So we're losing men from the very beginning. They're already bored with church. They're not enamored with Jesus, right? They want a king, they want a captain, like they want someone to lead them into battle, and they're not seeing that. So where we're seeing progress is when we drill down and we kind of go to that micro level and we look at discipling men, that 2 to 3 on-one discipleship process where we're really showing men who Jesus is, like the authentic Jesus, not white, long-haired, in a dress, driving a Prius hippie Jesus, like not him, and nothing wrong with driving a Prius. I mean, gas prices are ridiculous. I get it. But like the Jesus of Scripture that commands respect and authority and affection and things of that nature. So we show them the true Jesus and then who they are in this Jesus. I mean, they're kings, bro, like kings in training. And we create just a greater affection and following for Jesus in men.
Better Man is one of our ministry partners. We love what Chris and his team there are doing. If you or your church is looking for a group study for your men to go through that covers the essentials of biblical manhood and helps men have a clear vision of how they can be as a man, they can gain confidence, become the man they want to be, improve relationships, and create a more purposeful life, check out the resources from our friends Better Man. You can find those at betterman.com.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll just be transparent first and say that it's a struggle. It's not an easy thing. There's times when I do draw back, and my nature is introvert. So I'd rather keep to myself. But just through the years, one thing is I crave learning and growing. And so I'm always trying to learn and grow. And I know I don't know everything. And so there's always somebody that can learn from and can help me to grow. And so that's one of the things. But also it's just been, some of it is just track record. I was like, this has helped us before. This has helped me before. And so when I'm faced with challenges and problems, instead of, doing what is natural, I think it's more natural to draw back. It's like, okay, I got to talk to somebody. I got to have these conversations. And then when you cross, I don't know, you cross over that bridge, now it's reciprocated. So the friend who knows you're going through something, and maybe you are in that season where you're trying to draw back, now will reach out and he will force the conversation or initiate the conversation. So it goes both ways. It's not just that person. It's after you build that relationship. Now we know, because I have friends, the gentleman who called us out at the class one time, when we spent all the holidays at their family. They were literally like family. We had no family where we are in Indianapolis at the time. And there was one holiday where I didn't show up. He knew exactly what was up. And he asked Stefan about it. Then he talked to me. I told him I had work to do. I was like, I'm not going today. I'm going to stay home and do work. I did have work, but it was a holiday. I didn't need to do that work. And so I stayed home. And it wasn't like, oh, you stayed home. Oh, you have work to do. He's like, no, I know what's up. Talk to me about it. And so that took courage on his part, trust on his part, in a relationship threshold that you have to get to or get over for you to have that two-way street.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it, a relationship threshold. I was listening to you describe that, Kent, and then how you responded, Jackie. There have been many times in my life, and I've seen it in other dudes as well, where the invitation was put out there, but you kind of shy away a little bit maybe from it, and like, I'm busy, or we've got something, or I'll get back to you. Maybe we can do that next week. And then, one excuse leads to another and it doesn't happen. When you were talking about your small group, we had a similar experience for years. There were 3 other couples that we got together with, and man, the bond that we have today, now that all of our children are kind of grown and out of the house ish, and becoming young adults themselves, sort of, I guess I would say in the moving on stage, and the bond that we have as parents, we can see each other after being apart physically for years and be right back where we were, because we shared so deeply in those moments with each other, and we struggled with depth and authenticity. And it was like we got each other kind of air quote through some raising of children time for, I don't know, 6-8 years maybe or more. And that's a very special bond that we have. But it takes, I think what you said, courage as a guy, typically more so, I think, than our wives.
Agreed.
Or just women in general, to say yes. And so God's going to give you some opportunities. And so dads, listeners, as you're listening to Jackie, receive what God's telling you is that there are going to be times in your life where something comes along, an opportunity presents itself, and that's being there, that's coming to you for a reason, either for you to invest in someone or for you to receive, an investment. And, it's okay to say, yeah.
I noticed one thing in your book, Jackie, you talked about, I think you and I have at least one thing in common, probably dozens, but one was, I think you and I have both been fired a couple times, or lost a couple jobs. I think in your case, you were downsized. In my case, I was just booted, like for reasons that I deserved.
Well, I was just booted too. So,
hey, congratulations. But like as the age old adage goes, the best time to find a job is when you already have one. right? It's like the best time to find your next job is when you already have one. The best time to find a friend is before you desperately need one.
Truth.
Right. The best time to find a friend is before you desperately need one. So if you find yourself sailing through life and it's relatively smooth sailing, man, what a great time to go invest in some friends. I want to make sure we don't miss something today. I want to spend a fair amount of time focused on your book. I want to help dads who are the vast majority of the guys listening to this would be married. And so I want them to hear some ideas that you have from your book. The book is called The 7 Rings of Marriage, Your Model for a Lasting and Fulfilling Marriage. And we'll link to that in the show notes. Before we dive in there, one of the things you said in the book, which I found really interesting, it was one of the chapter titles or section titles that was a bit of a play on words. And I want you to unpack it a little bit for the guy listening. And we'll get into the rings here in a second. But you said, marriage isn't for you. Marriage isn't for you. And I think you were quoting somebody when you said it. And we joked about it at the top of the show that, I kind of jokingly thought marriage was for Kent. Marriage isn't for you. What do you mean by that, Jackie?
Yeah, now I don't remember the guy's name. I know his first name Seth that I quoted. It was a conversation he had with his dad. But it's not about us. And if I think about it, I'll explain it from my standpoint. When I got into marriage, let's just be real. We were doing things before marriage that we shouldn't have been doing. And I thought, okay, now that's going to be unlimited. I will never have there's sex for any time I want it. She's at my beck and call. That was one of the things. So it was about selfish motives. Then I realized it's not about me. It's about Stefana. It's about our kids and all those that will be in relationship with us through our union. And then most importantly, and this is what we learned later, when I mentioned this earlier, marriage is bigger than us. It's a way for us to point back to God. Our relationship will model his relationship, and it will give people an opportunity to see him through our marriage that would have never been able to have an opportunity to see him and perhaps get into a relationship with him. So it is very big. I like to say if we could break our marriage up into 2 big seasons, the first season or the first half was just trying to make it through, stay married, go through these problems and figure it out and get on the other side. Then I realized it's bigger than us. It's more than us alone. Excuse me. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good.
Yeah, we can go, but
it's
we
bigger
can
than
go
us.
back.
Oh, we can,
It is bigger than us. It is bigger. And when you realize that, and you realize that it's almost like I would say the other thing is true about, it's similarly true about fatherhood. And that is, fatherhood isn't just about raising citizens. It's about showing our kids an example of God the Father. And it's you can take it as pressure if you want, but I think it's a calling. Stephen Kendrick, the filmmaker, says it this way. Every kid has a picture of their father almost like on a piece of glass, and their father's face is on this glass, and you can sort of see through it. And they hold that glass up to God the Father, and they see God through their own dad. And I love that imagery. And his question in that movie they released a couple years ago, Show Me the Father, was how distorted is the image? So when they look through you and they see God the Father, and how much math do they got to do to get to the real God the Father, based on your example? And I think the same is true in marriages, right? Is that we're not just being married. We are, that is the primary metaphor that Jesus uses to describe his relationship to the church, is he's the bridegroom. The church is the bride. And so our marriages are first and foremost a picture of the gospel. Yes. And then all this other stuff is extra, right?
Yep. I wanted to say preach as you were talking, but that is so true. That is so true. Go ahead, Lost. Looked like you were saying something.
I was bouncing around the internet looking at you and what you guys have put together. You mentioned earlier that you are an introvert, and most guys would look at your public persona and not at all think that you're an introvert. So I've got a question on that, because I do feel like it's not easy for everyone to just engage or go into a church small group or approach someone and say, hey, you look like you've got this area of your life kind of figured out, and I'm struggling with something. Can I talk to you, or can we develop a relationship? That's not easy for everyone. So I want you to hone in on that. But then I've got a follow-up question about something that I saw you say on YouTube, and I'll explain it. I won't just hit you cold. But talk about kind of circle back on the I'm surprised that you describe yourself as an introvert, because your persona out there is not that. And so how do you overcome some of those struggles, if they
Yeah.
are?
Yeah, I think one, the introvert in me is that's the way I most recharge. So I kind of need to get away to recharge. Sometimes I do. There's a term for it. My daughter talks about it all the time. I forgot the term where you can recharge as an introvert alone, but also around other people. But I think it's really just the desire to be better and to grow. It's like I know like these are problems that are bigger than me. And so I can sit back and be more comfortable and withdraw and not step forward, or I can say, okay, I got to do what I need to do to have this conversation or to take
Mm,
the next step to be the best version of myself as a husband, as a dad, or whatever it is, or to step on stage. And then I think that
Hmm.
also there's some, when it comes to as far as reaching out to other people for help, but when it comes to sharing in a small group or helping other couples, I think there's some giftings that I have that God has given me that enable me to use that and thrive in that. I think one of my giftings is the spiritual gift of teaching. And so with that being said, that it is not just me operating there. That is his Holy Spirit in me operating through me. So it gives me the power to do things that I couldn't do on my own. And I think, some of those questions are as well, some of the same things like, okay, I need help. I don't really want to expose myself or
Right.
take this next step.
Yeah, that's right.
But I need
yeah.
help. So I got to have, one of my favorite verses is be strong and courageous is Joshua 1:6. And he told us that because there are times when he knows we're going to be fearful or feel weak. And so he's telling us in advance, like you would tell your kids, okay, watch both ways before we cross the street because there's cars are getting ready to come. They may not know it. And so he's preparing us. So I think there's some strength that is outside of me as well that pushes
Hmm.
me through it.
Yeah, right on. Um, I love the rings of marriage. That that as you go down your list, I'd love you to describe that, starting with, it starts with the engagement ring, then the wedding ring, and I won't spill the candy in the lobby because I think you'll explain it a whole lot better than me, obviously. But man, that really resonated with me as I went down and kind of broke through the way that you're uncovering elements of a good, happy, strong marriage. Will you take us through the rings?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And the seven rings of marriage are really, really what seasons of marriage we went through. And so we saw, okay, where we started, now here where we are. But in addition to that, is like you just don't go through them once. You can come back to certain seasons or certain rings in marriage. And
Absolutely.
there's
Mm,
different
yeah.
skills and things that you want to work on or focus on when you're at a particular ring throughout. So you mentioned the first two, the engagement ring and the wedding ring, which are really obvious. The engagement ring is really that part where you're, setting the vision and you see ahead, you're looking toward being married and all those different things. But it's the most important season for you to set a proper foundation so that way you can grow a big and strong marriage. And that proper foundation for us is rooted in our relationship with Jesus Christ. And so with that, we make sure that we are rooted in him and that foundation is built on him. He's the cornerstone that we build our marriage on. And then of course, next to the wedding ring, that's when you officially say I do in front of your family and friends and everybody, and you're committed. And so that's a commitment that you're coming together as one in marriage that is not just that one day. It's over and over and over again. Micro commitments, big commitments. You have to make these things over and over again. Then after that, now we're we're married, we're living together, we're sharing life together, and now you start to it's the discovering where you start learning new things about each other. And I like to say this, like if you are real and transparent, you'll say, if I would have known some of these things before now, we might not be here. We might
Or
not
if
have
she
gotten to this
were,
point.
if she were
Right.
to say that.
Right. Right. But what we learn is those things happen, automatically, unintentionally, where you just learn about each other, you learn
Yeah.
about yourself. But the most important thing is to be intentional about it. And so now you're being intentional about becoming a lifelong learner about your spouse, about you, and about marriage as you're coming together as one. And then typically after you start discovering things, little friction things happen like that, conflict. Now you're at the persevering.
Whoa, Jackie. Wait, what do you mean friction and conflict? I don't know what these foreign concepts
We're
are.
thinking about you, April.
Do those
Evans,
only happen in
right now.
Indianapolis? Are
We're
those
with
just
you.
an Indiana thing?
I would like to say yes, but no, it is all over the place. So these other guys out there, you're just not the crazy couple that's going through some stuff. Everybody's facing the stuff that we're dealing with, that we're talking about today.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. So persevering, and the persevering is the fourth ring. And jump in there anytime you guys want to. It's right in the middle. So it's what I like to look at as the fork in the road, where now you're facing challenges in your marriage. Some couples choose to go left and get out of the marriage. Some couples choose to go right and stay in it. And there's even some couples that stay in it, but just resign or resolve to just say, okay, this is the best marriage we're going to have. It'll never be better than this.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that's heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. So after the persevering, now you've gone through some stuff. Now you got some broken hearts, some broken pieces in your marriage. Now you go through the restoring, where now there's some forgiveness, receive some forgiveness granted, and you're restoring that marriage. But it's ultimately God that has to do the restoring. It's not something that you can do on your own, especially when you get to those deeper hurts and deeper levels of offense. And then after that, now we've restored our marriage. We developed that skill on how to forgive and how to grant forgiveness and receive it. Now we are in the prospering, and this is what we all think happily ever after. But slow down just a little bit, because it doesn't mean everything's perfect. You are still experiencing challenges. You still go through things, but now after all you've been through in marriage, you have a different perspective. And so what used to saddle you or mess you up for a week or more, some dispute or something like that, now you can resolve it much quicker, and you just appreciate what you've been through in your marriage. This is a really great thing that God has given us. And we've made it to this far. And then, after prospering, now you're at the mentoring. We talked a lot about that already, where you have been through a bunch. God has been gracious and faithful to you and your bride. And now you want to share that goodness with other people who may be there now where you were, or soon will be in that same position. And so that's the 7 rings in a quick nutshell.
Yeah, that's great. Is there one ring where you find more marriage couples? You've interacted with hundreds, maybe thousands of couples. Is there one ring where you find they have the most trouble with? That it's like, is it discovering or persevering or restoring? Where do you see more marriages get grounded or stuck, or maybe have trouble overcoming?
Yeah, it was funny. We do. I have a survey, and the survey gives the rings are the results of the survey, and so I should know that information off the hand. But I think just off the top of the head, it's the persevering, of course, but I think also the discovering. And you hear a lot of couples where the busy schedules of life, everything gets in between them, so they stop dating each other. They stop trying to learn new things. They kind of get in the same old mold, and so if you're not intentional about discovering, that person you married for us on June 2001 is different than the person today, August of 2023. So I could be still, because I haven't been intentional about learning new things, still be relating to her in that same June of 2001 spouse that I married. So, and I think that's where the big challenge comes. And then you hear couples, we've drifted apart. We just don't know each other. The spark is gone, all these different things. Well, that's just that's a result of not being intentional about connecting. And so now you're disconnected, you're drifting. And then what comes next is the persevering. Now those things start to resolve or come into conflict and bigger than what it was.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about, sorry, Lawson, we were talking earlier about being introvert or extrovert. And I know that's true. And I'm not going to get into the psychological argument, and I'm not going to I'm not anti-Enneagram, but I think the challenge with a lot of that assessment kind of world is that we label ourselves, and then we just live in those labels forever. It's like, well, I'm a 9, so I can't listen well. What? I don't know about that. And I think what's interesting is, I think God wants to shape us over time, right? We are changing, and we're becoming conformed to the image of Christ. So if you knew your wife 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and you don't know her now, then that's a miss, right? Because there's things that she's not believing, like she used to like apples and she no longer likes apples. It's not necessarily that simple, but God's moving in her heart and changing her as a person, changing me as a person in a way where I'm becoming different over time. I'm becoming more and more like Christ over time. And that requires ongoing discovery, right? This ongoing discovery. There's things I want to do at my current age that I probably didn't think about when I was 43 or 33. But now that I'm 53, it's a little different. And my wife is an amazing student of me. Like, she does a great job. I hope I return the favor, but she does a great job of staying fresh and current with who I am, what I'm going through, who my friend circles are, what my ministry dreams are, what my life dreams are. she stays in touch with those. And is that part of what you're talking about, Jackie?
Definitely. Yeah. You got to stay in touch with that. They're growing and constantly changing. And if not, like I said, you start to drift apart, or you just relate to them as someone that they no longer are. And I think that's where that disconnect comes. And you're like, okay, you may say they're not the same person. Well, no, they're not the same person, but you're still relating to them as the same person. So now there's that friction and that conflict coming, but it takes an intentional effort. And I think, maybe as a whole, women may be more, that maybe becomes more natural to them. For us, we kind of roll, but I think with just, a few little things here and there, you can be intentional about it. And I'm a technology person. So I've used tools before. I created a little Evernote file on my wife. So I know the different things that she says. She says something, I throw it in there real quick because I know 10 minutes later, it's gone.
That's awesome.
I got to use what I can use.
That's cool that you do that.
That's a nice little tip. That guys, listen, go get Evernote and create a file on your wife. And
do you ever say, Stefana, that's going in the file?
No, but she knows about it. And actually now it has trickled down to the kids, where the kids will keep, like, our daughter is phenomenal at it. So she's just, she's seen everything in our marriage. She's the oldest. She's here before our marriage. And so she pays attention. And so even when it comes down to birthdays, it's like, okay, what is such and such said that they've wanted lately? And she's like, all right, hold on. I should look it up.
Do you ever get so mad at your children that you go, I will delete your file. Don't push me. I will. I got my finger on that button and I'm going to delete that file, kid. No, probably not. That's just me. That's just me.
Yeah. Well, now it might be said now, but they'll probably say, well, mama still got it. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to delete it. She's got access to it as well.
As I was listening to you go through the rings, Jackie, it's, I was remembering back to some times in our, earlier parts of our marriage when you were talking about discovering and persevering. I think I was going through things that Audrey, my wife, wasn't. And, it's not this, you're a couple. And so on this perfectly linear pathway, you go through these kind of stages together. It's different people are going through different things at different times. And so what is your take on this? It's a process that reiterates itself, like I'm wondering your take on, like I said, our girls are kind of in this growing stage of kind of moving on into their young adulthood lives. And so now Audrey and I are going through something different, and it's almost like I'd say we're going back through this discovering time, because things are different with us now. And you're making me more aware of what I, as a husband and father, can maybe think about differently, or maybe even, I would say, do better than I have been doing in the last year or so. So it's an iterative process, right? Through what we're going through as individuals too, not just as a couple.
Yep, definitely. Yes. It's not, okay, yeah, we've gone through the rings. We were at the mentoring. Oh, we'll never go back to that. No, you're going to be persevering at some point. You're going to restoring because something happened. And you're going to need to go and learn more about yourself, because each season, like, same thing. We're our daughters graduated from college. We still got boys here, but we're having already more time alone with each other, because our high schooler's always gone, and our 13-year-old, he's the most social of them all. He's like the event planner for all of his friends, so he's always organizing things, and like if he had a car, he'd never be home. But he's just not 16, he can't drive,
right?
So we're learning. And we're learning. We're even learning, like, what we're doing on a public stage, how we are differently with that, and how we're growing and where we are with that. Stefana I'm the stage person. She's not so much, and so now we're learning how to prepare for events and speak together. You can always come back to them. And I think that typically your one or maybe two rings, you can identify more with, depending on where you are in your relationship. And then you start to hone in, okay, well, I'm here at discovering, what do I need to do practically to basically keep moving and keep growing together?
Well, and I want to remind guys, go get the book, The 7 Rings of Marriage, your model for a lasting and fulfilling marriage. Next, Jackie, I'd like to talk a little bit about what you and Stefana are doing at happymarriedcouples.com. Before we do, I would say that the one ring I've gone back to over and over again is the wedding ring. And the reason I say that is because I think I'm on my 4th wedding ring. One wife 4 wedding rings. I lost one in an ocean, one broke, another one, I don't know what happened to it. So that's not necessarily a good model for marriage. I know some guys are like, wow, that's bad, but I'm literally on my 4th wedding ring, but only one wife. So I'll take that. Jackie, tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing in happymarriedcouples.com. And if there's a dad out there listening who says, man, I really want to grow and learn more in this area, what will they find when they head over to your website?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Happily Married Couples is where we are creating community and resources to help couples grow together, grow towards Christ. First thing that you see when you get there is you see the free quiz that we offer. And I highly suggest everybody go through the quiz, find out where you are in your marriage. Once you get those, you get a personalized report. Once you get that, then you'll have some next steps to do and know what to focus on, like Lawson said, we were talking about earlier. But, that's just where when I first started helping couples, it was really just JackieBledsoe.com. And I was like, okay, we need a home for couples to come to and get the resources they need, get the community they need. And so we created that. In addition, we go around the country and speak at events. We'll be hosting our first event in Indianapolis next year, probably. So we're excited about that. And I got a story to tell about that if you guys want to hear how that came about.
Yeah, lay it on us.
Yeah.
So we've been asked for years, when are you guys going to do your own event? Because, churches bring us in, different ministries bring us in to speak for their event. And we're just
That's a big move, though.
It is. That's why I've been saying no. And I've always rejected it. We speak with Family Life, but at their event, their Weekend to Remember events. And every time someone's asked us, I've been like, nope, we're not doing it. I just was thinking, I don't want to go through all that work. I'm not an event planner. I don't know that area. I know how to get on stage and share resources and helpful information in our experiences. And then just God started softening my heart for not just the event, but for couples in our local area. Because we've been having a lot of conversations over the last 6 to 9 months. And we're like, okay, we go everywhere. We need to spend more time here. And so we started considering it. So I did a webinar on communication, and I was doing this alone. Stefana wasn't on the webinar. So doing a webinar, and on the webinar, I committed to doing our first event. I said, like, hey, just same conversation. We've been asked about it. We're finally going to do it. We're going to bring people here to Indianapolis to do our own event. About 2 or 3 days later, I'm like, oh man, I don't think I ever talked to Stefana about the event that I committed to. Not before nor after. Right. So I asked
Jackie's going back and replaying the webinar tape and going,
yeah, he's checking his
file.
There
it is. I said it out loud.
Right. Like, nope, it says right here in the file, I told you.
And she saw it because after the webinar, I sent out an email. She gets emails as well because we just test everything. And so she saw it and she didn't say anything about it. I was like, babe, did I talk to you about doing this event here? She's like, nope, you didn't.
Oh, man.
So my mastermind friends kind of roasted me for that. It's like the guy doing the webinar on communication did not even communicate with his wife.
Yeah, that's who I want to go listen to, though. Frankly,
right.
It's going to be real.
Right.
So one more time, when is that happening?
We haven't set a date yet. So we've had a couple of meetings.
Hey, you want to set a date right now? Just set a date live and don't even ask your wife. I dare you. Just set a date right now.
That's next week, learned, babe. I told you.
Right. Look, for all the guys listening, I have learned my lesson. I want you to learn from me as well. Talk to your wife first.
Talk to your wife first. I love it.
Hey, I've got one more thing before we let you go, Jackie. Really, first of all, thanks for spending time with us today. I loved getting to know you better. And I'm going to keep watching, and for sure, let us know when you guys do set that date, whatever we can do to help.
Or just have Stefana let us know. Have Stefana let us know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we want to make sure
you guys
knows first.
You should follow up with me and say, hey, have you talked to Stefana about this? You see me post anything like that monumental says, talk to Stefana, make sure you're good to go.
Right.
So great.
Yeah, you got to use that somehow when you guys get to Indianapolis. All right, so I heard something that you said, and I want you to go a little deeper on it, where you spoke about Isaiah 40:31, which starts with those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength, and I took that and I tied it into the thinking that I have for my marriage, and on our show we love to do our best to always remember to encourage other guys out there that are wanting to be a better godly father. But what you said, you break down the word kava and what it means to wait. I want you to explain this because I won't do it well. Like, what I took from it was like you're waiting with expectation and you're together in your hopefulness that is resting in God. And so how do you, it's like you're intertwined sort of, or braided together, I think you said. Will you
Yeah.
explain where you're coming from with the word kava, and what that, how can we relate that to our marriage, and kind of how we're coming together and waiting with hope in the Lord?
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you gave context because I was like, okay, what did I say? What did I say? That was one of my U version verse of the day videos. Yeah, and I remember that. And I think one thing that I said in there was, as we're waiting, a lot of times we think of hope and just kind of waiting, like waiting in a doctor's office,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
sitting there waiting on our name to be called. Not too excited.
Passive.
Yeah, passive waiting. But no, this is an active waiting where we're anticipating and excited. So think of a woman when she's pregnant, a couple, they're excited about the baby coming soon, and they're getting the nursery ready. They're doing all these things and laying out all this stuff because they're excited and taking action on what's going to happen soon, or whatever that date is. And that kava, this is the way I forgot how to say it. Is it's like you are waiting, but you're intertwining yourself with the things that you're waiting on, or the things of God
Yeah,
in
there
our
you go.
situation, in our marriage. And so now, as we are waiting on season of marriage, something going on with our spouse, we're not just sitting there passively waiting, like spending the time waiting on her to come out of the store or something like that. But no, we're engaging with her, and we're engaging all things and weaving all things together, and anticipating and getting excited about what God is bringing forth and what is to come. So maybe I don't know if I said that exactly how I said it
Yeah,
before, but
dude,
that's the
that
general
was it.
idea. Awesome.
Man, that's fantastic. Thank you, Jackie, for your time today. Thanks for committing your life to helping, first, being a godly man, a godly husband, godly father, keeping the home stuff right. What's the profit of man to gain the world? And so I'm grateful that you want to do it right at home first. And thank you for being transparent and helpful to our dads out there. Dad, we've given you a ton of ideas today. Jackie's given you some ideas. For more, if you want to dive deeper, get Jackie's book, The 7 Rings of Marriage, your model for a lasting and fulfilling marriage. Easy to snag on Amazon, anywhere you can buy books. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. And also head to happymarriedcouples.com/father on purpose. happymarriedcouples.com/father on purpose. I think Jackie's going to put some free resources on that page, like an 8x10 glossy of me suitable for framing, which would be fantastic, because who doesn't want that? Right, Lawson? You have one, right, Lawson? Do you have?
Can you judge by the smile on my face how funny I thought that was?
We're super grateful to Jackie. Jackie, any closing word? Most dads we bump into are discouraged, are under pressure. They feel like they can't do enough. They feel like they aren't doing enough. They feel like their past sins disqualify them from being godly dads. There's one of the verses I cite probably most frequently is Galatians 6:9. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't grow weary in doing well. And so how about a final word, Jackie, from you to the dad listening?
Yeah, they're all those things that they're feeling, they're 90% of us are feeling as well. Even those that you look at and look very, very successful, or they got it all together. Nope, we've got those same challenges. So don't lose hope, but also don't go at it alone. Marriage is not a solo sport. It's meant to be not just with your spouse, but with others, and ultimately with the power of the Holy Spirit and God, and that we can't do it on our own. He wants us to lean on him. And he's the greatest big brother. He's the greatest father that we'll ever have, to help us do all the things that we want to do, but just can't do alone on our own.
What a great final word, Jackie. Thank you for blessing our dads today. Dad, tune in next week for some more encouragement. We'll see you down the road. Hey, Dad, thank you for listening to today's show. If you found this episode helpful, remember, you can get all the content and show notes at manhoodjourney.org/podcast. And if you really liked it, please consider doing 3 things. Number 1, share this podcast with someone. You can hit the share button in your app, wherever you listen to podcasts, or just call the person up and tell them to listen in. Number 2, subscribe to this podcast so you get episodes automatically. That helps us as well to help dads find the show. You can do that through your favorite listening app, whatever that is. And finally, review this podcast. Leave us a review, good or bad, wherever you listen. Those reviews also help other dads find the show. You can always learn more about what we're up to at manhoodjourney.org or fatheronpurpose.org. We will see you next week.